The selfish giant owns a garden where every afternoon after school, children would come and play. It was a large garden with soft green grass, 12 peach trees that bore fruit in autumn and flowers that came out of the grass. The birds would sing in the garden and children would stop their games in order to listen to them. Suddenly, the giant came back one day and scared all the children away. He had been on a visit to his friend, the Cornish ogre, for 7 years. As he saw the children playing, he told them that no one except him can play in the garden and built huge walls around it. He put up a notice board saying trespassers will be prosecuted. Poor children had nowhere to play. They tried playing on the road, but it was too dusty and filled with hard rocks. The children began to remember how happy they were when they played in the garden. Then came the spring season. All across the country, but in the giant's garden, it was still winter. The only residents in his garden were frost and the snow that covered the trees and grass. They invited the north wind over, who came wrapped in fur and roared all day about the garden. They thought it was a delightful place and invited the hail, who came dressed in gray. The giant wondered when the spring would come in his garden, while the frost, the snow, the north wind, and the hail stayed happily. Even autumn refused to come, as he thought that the giant was too selfish. One morning, as the giant laid awake in his bed, he heard some mesmerizing music. He thought that the king's musicians were passing by, but in actuality, it was the linnet's song that sounded so sweet. As the giant woke up to see, he saw the most wonderful sight. The children had crept in through a small hole in the wall. With them in the garden, the trees were happy, the birds had come back, the flowers grew out of the ground, and the spring finally came. But in the farthest corner of the garden, there was still winter. As he tried to look, he saw a little boy who was so short that he couldn't reach till one of the branches of the tree. The giant ran to help him, but instead scared all the kids away. Only the boy in the farthest corner had stayed, because he could not see the approaching giant, because his eyes were filled with tears. The giant helped him climb the tree, and the little boy hugged and kissed him in return. Upon seeing the transformed behavior of the giant, the rest of the kids returned back, and with them. The giant broke down the wall and opened the garden for kids. Every afternoon, children would come to play with him after school. The giant kept looking for that boy he once helped, but unfortunately, he never came and no one knew about him. Years passed by, and the giant grew old and weak. He now only watched the children play. One winter morning, as he looked out of his window, he saw a marvelous sight. In the farthest corner of the garden, the tree was covered with white blossoms. Its branches were golden, and it bore silver fruit. Underneath the tree, he saw the little boy that he once helped. Joyously, he went downstairs and into the garden to meet him, but as soon as he went near him, the giant grew angry. The child had imprints of 2 nails on his hands and 2 on his little feet. The giant asked the kid the name of the person who wounded him. The child told him that those were the wounds of love. Instantly, the giant was struck with awe, and he knelt before the child. The little child told him that once he allowed him to play in his garden, now it was time for the giant to come in his garden, which is paradise. In the afternoon, when the children came to play in the giant's garden, they found the giant lying lifeless on the ground with white blossoms all over him.